So Ron and I spoke a few months ago, and we were kind of focused on hybrid solutions. So normally when we talk about hybrid, we talk about doing Azure solutions outside of Azure, things like Azure Stack HCI or Arc. But today we wanted to talk about VMware. It's one of the non-Microsoft offerings we have inside of Azure. We also have Oracle Exadata. We have things like IBM Power for the IBM IMP series through SkyTap, and we also have network appliance. But today, like I said, we're going to focus on VMware. I want to go through the presentation relatively quickly so that we can leave a little time for questions at the end, and then also feel free to either email or text, after the presentation, time permitting. But from a software standpoint, I already mentioned that some of the other options. One thing I would want to mention about VMware. So VMware and Azure will include common things like vSphere, vCenter, vSAN, NSX, HCX, and then other tools like vMotion. So all the tools you're familiar with are there. We'll talk about some additional ones. Pardon me for that. We will talk about some additional ones as well, but I did want to mention that to you. And then other features available in Azure, like hybrid benefits, where you get, in essence, dual use rights for things like Windows, and also migration rights for things like SQL Server, and extended security updates are also honored and available inside of the VMware offering. So that is indeed the case. The thing to realize, though, you are running VMware natively inside of Azure. This is running on bare metal inside of an Azure data center. So, this is like for like. This is not an emulator. This is not a layered solution. This is VMware inside of Azure. So as I mentioned before, and we'll talk about also some of the third-party services that are available, but you will have the capability to run everything within Azure that are native services. I mentioned some other third-party services along with VMware. So this gives you the capability, if you are needing to migrate a solution from on-premises that today runs in VMware, and maybe you're using Exadata or other things, you can take those solutions exactly as they are. You'll have some networking changes to make, a few, but you can move them directly into Azure natively. From a responsibility standpoint, if you're familiar with running VMware on premises, it's going to work the same way in Azure. The only difference is there won't be any hardware to kick, if you will. So the things you're responsible for in terms of configurations are there. Life cycle deployment, those are all there. We provide, so everything in the blue Microsoft provides, everything in the gray is your responsibility. And if you do need additional help, we do have partners that can help with that. And if you are a partner, the gray area is a potential target for the value you might add up to the solution. We just announced at the beginning of this calendar year a new SKU, AV64, and the AV64 is based on a newer version of Intel Xeon platforms. It's a 64-core offering with up to 128 vCPUs, a terabyte of RAM, and as well as expanded vSAN storage. So that is newly available. We also have an AV36 and 36P. The 36 is kind of being phased out because it's older, and we have an AV52 that's available as well. So those are just different hardware configurations. So like I mentioned before, this is a bare metal service that runs directly on on Intel hardware. From a storage option, we just announced Pure Storage, and Pure Storage is a native offering from VMware. So we're going to get to some storage options, but if you do have the requirement where you want to do VMware Pure Storage, that is available. It is popular for a lot of reasons, for compression and dedupe, so it's very efficient. But did want to throw that out. That's available right from the marketplace as well. Now, the default for doing things like migration is HCX. And HCX, if you use VMware, you should be familiar with it already, but it provides really two big benefits. One is if you want to migrate from on-premises into Azure, HCX will allow you to sync your VMs into Azure kind of over a period of time. So let's say that you want to do your actual migration next Sunday. You can actually set up HCX. It'll start migrating things in the background and get things pretty much ready to go. And then when Sunday comes, you'll do the last second deltas and be able to accomplish your transition very, very quickly. So that's one of the big advantages of HCX. There's also the advantage of HCX in that you don't have to modify IP addresses. So often in VMware on premises, you'll use IP addresses that aren't, in essence, allowed to be populated in the wild because they might be replicated or duplicated other places. You don't have to modify your IP addresses moving into Azure. HCX will preserve those. So that's another big benefit, and it also will help migration be much easier. And one other really key important thing, this is really more financial. We do have you can do pay as you go. You can also do a 1-year reserved instance, which means you have a guaranteed price for 1 year and a discount associated with it. Or you could do a 3 or a 5-year reserved instance with a greater discount associated with it. That's a pretty key thing for a lot of our customers. Because of the Broadcom acquisition, the pricing has been, let's say, in flux. So, we had a 10-year agreement with VMware. I think we're in our 3rd year of a 10-year agreement. So we can offer you a 5-year guaranteed price at a pretty hefty discount. The 5-year reserved instance offering was supposed to be phased out in the end of March. I think it's now been extended to the end of June. It may be extended beyond then, but that's kind of where we are today. But I did want to make sure you're aware of that. And if you do have a thing called a MAC, which is an Azure consumption agreement, this will count towards that as well. There's a link in here which you'll have in your PDFs if you want to actually go and read more details about the pricing offering. So, and let's see. From a storage standpoint, I mentioned before you can use Pure Storage, which is native from VMware. You can also use Azure Blob Storage, which is the cheapest. It also offers a variety of tiers, everything from sub-penny per gig per month, which is archive, to hot storage, and then also to cool storage. You also have several tiers of performance. You can do SSD, premium SSD, or ultra SSD. We also support Azure Files. We support File Sync, and then for a lot of folks, it's important we support NetApp. And this is a first-party service from Microsoft. So, but that is another option available. So you have a pretty wide variety of storage offerings, for your VMware usage. And where is it located? Right now, it's we have VMware offered as a first-party service, and it's called VCS. It's available in I think 32 different regions around the world. These are the 32 currently available regions. Each of these regions includes typically 3 availability zones, so pretty widely offered. It'll also be that offering will probably be expanded as well. So. The VMware ecosystems, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's like for like. The software that you get includes ESXi, vCenter, vSAN, NSXT, and HCX. There are third-party, I shouldn't say third-party, there are additional pieces of software you can buy that are licensed separately through VMware. The Pure, though, I think you can get through the marketplace. So if you're dependent on some other VMware features or layered pieces of software, they are available as well. And lastly, from a support standpoint, you do have Microsoft as a single first contact, so you don't have to worry about having okay, I call Microsoft for this, I call VMware for that. If you have an issue, you raise it with Microsoft. Basically we handle the support. If there's escalation required, we have the right contracts with VMware to do the escalation for you. That certainly is available. One thing that I neglected to mention was networking, and I might, we do support all the popular NVAs. So if you're using things like Palo Alto or Cisco's, as your software-defined networks, they are available as well. So with that, Ron, I think we should probably, in the sake of time, go directly to Q&A.